Hello everybody, I'm Mike Jr. II, and today we're going to be going over a quirk in the hardware for the Raspberry Pi. Well, it's not as much a quirk as it is something that's just different. For people who want to use the Pi as an emulation machine though, it could be a deal breaker for them, so I thought it was important to bring it up. And I also think I have a few solutions for you not tech-savvy fans. If you don't care about my little channel update, skip to this part of the video to get on with this review. And for returning viewers, skip to this point for the solutions. I want to thank all of you for being patient on my video covering overclocking and how it can help emulation on the Retropie. The Raspberry Pi 3 I've been using since the beginning turns out to not have a good stability when it comes to overclocking, so I had to wait until after school started to even get another Pi, and I haven't had much time after that to test it. A lot has gone into my life since my last video. School, work, losing 60 pounds since I recorded my last video, and gaining however much a green cheek conure weighs. So before I got my new Pi, I came up with some different video ideas about the Pi 3 to tide people over until the overclocking video. Once I'm done with this video, I'll get straight onto working on that one, but until then, I hope you enjoy this bonus video. So for newbies, let's talk about the Raspberry Pi briefly. The Raspberry Pi is a very small, cheap, Linux-based computer that's very popular with programmers. It has also been used by a lot of non-programmers as a media center to run Kodi or to be an emulation machine using the Retropie. The Raspberry Pi 3 is the most powerful version of the Pi on the market as of this video and the most commonly used for the Retropie. I made a review a while back that covered a lot of emulators on the Raspberry Pi 3 running Retropie. It showed off how emulators of most retro consoles ran on it, including NES, Genesis, Game Boy Advance, PlayStation, and much more. A long story short, everything I tested with the Nintendo 64 was damn good at most and playable at the least. With a wide range of controller support and plenty of extra options, it's honestly a really good emulation machine. Many people got super interested in it as they could have almost every retro console on a simple device for around $50 to $70. That video had much more to do with the software on the Raspberry Pi 3 than the device itself, so I never really brought up some quirks about the Pi. One in particular that could even be a breaking point for some people is that the only way you can turn the Pi on is by plugging it in. That might sound like a no-brainer, but by that I mean there's no on or off button. If you leave it plugged in after shutting it down, you have to unplug it and plug it back in to turn it on again. So, why does the Pi not have a power button and instead use this Stone Age technique? Well, I don't think there's a concrete answer, but the two theories I like are software and user error. Feel free to correct my computer ignorance here, but most computers use the ACPI, or Advanced Configuration and Power Interface. So on some computers you can just push the power button once and the computer usually shuts down like if you were shutting it down from the software. On laptops and possibly most store-bought computers, it's more sleep mode now, but it's kind of the same thing. It tells the computer to get ready to be put in a low power state. The ACPI is also the reason that you can completely kill the power to your computer by holding the power button for a few seconds. Which we all know not to do unless our computer won't let us do it from the software, which even then, it's a gamble it won't break anything. Going back to the Pi, since there's no software pre-installed into the device, it might have been impossible for the Pi to come with a power button that followed the ACPI since they don't make every operating system. Now I don't code for the Pi, nor do I really understand what goes into making an operating system, or even the hardware. But why couldn't they just have everyone who made an operating system for the Pi use the power button following the ACPI standard? I mean, it could be a money issue to keep it cheap, or hell, maybe they just didn't want to restrict people. There are guides online to installing your Pi with a power button, but that involves adding code, and at the same time, I'm not exactly sure if they'd work with the Retropie. If you've gotten them to work, I would love to hear results in the comments below. Now, one of the other reasons we might not have a power button is because of user error. So if the Pi can't make a button that works with the ACPI standard, why not just do a simple switch that just cuts the power on and off? It gets the job done and would probably be super cheap. Well, the reason they might not want to do that is because people are too used to the ACPI standard. So maybe they would push the switch without shutting it off from the software first, which could break the Pi. And possibly any other hardware attached, especially SD cards. I mean, people should be smart enough not to do this. If you need to unplug your computer or turn your outlet off, you would shut your PC down normally first. But again, people might not realize the difference between a switch and an ACPI button, so they would still make the mistake and possibly never realize it until something breaks. So now that we have an idea as to why we don't have a power button, are we satisfied with the results? No. Take this from a guy who uses this device a lot. I'd rather not have to deal with the bright red light being on constantly, so I want to unplug it. However, I need to have something to hold the cord because I don't want it to fall behind my desk. I used to just Velcro strap it next to my HDMI cable and plugged it in when needed, which served me for a while. Now that I have a FrameMeister though, I use the same HDMI cord to plug either device into the Elgato, so I hate having the power cord near my FrameMeister, which is why I have the tack next to the Pi so I can keep it looking level and hold the power supply in place. I mean, if none of this stuff bothers you, that's great, but I want this done. So I went Googling, searched through some forum posts, and found a few interesting solutions. Once again, there is the option to make the power button yourself and either have it be an ACPI button or just make it a simple power switch. However, I won't be going over that because I want to gear this towards non-programmers wanting to use it for the Retropie or even Kodi. And I'm not sure whether or not the code would interfere with the Retropie, and I don't have the ability to test it myself right now. ETA Prime did a video on making a power button with the Retropie in mind, so if that interests you, then please give that a watch. I'll put a link in the description below. So without programming, we won't be able to make an ACPI button or even a button that just acts like a switch, so all we can really do is get creative with the power cord. Think of it like having the Pi plugged into a multi-outlet and we turn it off and on using the switch. Keep in mind, we still want to shut down the device on the software before we cut the power this way. So this idea works, but it's not an ideal solution, and now we're at the mercy to whoever the outlet is. A solution I saw on Amazon is that there's a lot of extenders and straight up plugs that have switches on the power cord. It cuts the power when needed and would be close to the Pi for convenience. These extenders seem really good, but I read reviews on some saying that their extenders don't output the proper voltage, even if it's plugged into the right power supply. The Raspberry Pi 3 needs a 2.5A power supply at the least. Considering how taxing some emulation is, you don't want to underpower this thing, so if this interests you the most, make sure you read the reviews so you don't get a bad one. I would think that the switches built into the power supply shouldn't have the low voltage problem, but buying a whole new power supply just for this one piece seems pricey. So it can't get any better than that, right? A switch that's close to the Pi and acts as the power button? What could be better? How about if it were wireless? We've all gotten used to turning on our consoles wirelessly since the start of the last console generation, and I can't help but think many people have gotten used to that now. Some of the first solutions I saw to the Pi getting a power button was towards wireless outlets that can turn the power on and off from a remote or even smartphone. So just like that, we now have our device we can turn on and off comfortably without having to be near the Pi. Man, I really wish I had this when I used my first Pi as a Kodi machine. So I'm sure wireless will be what a lot of people want to go for, but which device should you buy? For the first device I was looking at, I found the eTech City wireless remote control electrical outlet switch for household. Okay, Amazon retailers, please come up with better names for your products. How am I supposed to advertise them if they're this long? God forbid you ever name something after supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Just Google remote control outlet and you'll find what you need. This product looks like it would get the job done, but I have a busy outlet, so I don't think this would fit comfortably. And I'm scared I might lose the remote. The prices seem like they range from $10 to $20. Not a super cheap solution, but it's a wireless controlled outlet. It's not gonna be $5. I decided to go with a mini Wi-Fi smart plug that can be turned on and off through my phone. The device can be turned on manually, so if I somehow lose my phone or it just stops working through Wi-Fi, I can still use it. It looks smaller too, so maybe it won't block off. Well, I tried. Price-wise, the one I got was trying to make it seem like I got a $60 item for only $17, but if you literally search mini Wi-Fi smart plug, you'll find out most are $17 to $40. Now for the one I bought, you'll need to have some kind of Apple or Android tablet or phone that is compatible with the app. So only shoot for this if you have those devices handy. Windows, phones, and devices do not have the app. I also really like the options on the app. It's set up so you can have multiple of these in your home, and because of this, it lets you name the plug so you know what you're turning on and off. Seems like there's some other features that I would never use for the Pi, but I can't help but like the option. I also haven't seen the low voltage symbol on my Pi while using this, even when overclocking, so I don't believe there's any voltage problems either. Though, the snapping electric noise does worry me when I turn it on. Overall, I think this is a perfect solution to get a power button for your Pi without having to be a programmer, and it's wireless as a bonus. Since I've made this script, I've had this device for a good while, and I have to say that it's pretty awesome. I almost forgot the power supply used to be an issue, so if this whole power supply quirk bothers you, this is a fantastic device to solve it. Honestly, the testing I did on my first Pi 3 was the reason I wanted to find this solution. It's been very helpful whenever I get to test out overclocking on my new Pi 3. I'm happy I won't have to keep plugging it in and out constantly when doing tests, which I have to do a lot without the case on too. I do hope you Pi fans enjoyed this video and you found one of these solutions helpful. If you have your own solutions or the ones we talked about didn't work out for you, please leave it in the comments below. If you were curious about the Raspberry Pi 3 being used as an emulation machine, then head on over to my original video that reviews it and explains how to get some of the more difficult emulators to work. I also did a second video later that looks over emulation of later systems that aren't perfect but could be an option for some. And hopefully next time you guys see me like this, we'll be talking about overclocking on the Retropie. See you guys then. The device can be turned on manually, so if someone loses my phone, if that's right, I never lose my own phone. It's somebody else's goddamn fault. The fucking bird did it. Cilantro, you lost my goddamn phone, you son of a bitch.